Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hey there.
This is where we take your sources, articles, notes, research, and we really try to cut right to the chase, pulling out the crucial stuff you need fast.
Exactly.
And if you're listening today, you're probably already in the security field. You've got solid experience under your belt, and maybe you're looking at that next big career move.
And often that next move involves thinking about the Certified Protection Professional Certification, the CPP. It's offered by ASIS International.
Right, the CPP.
It's pretty widely seen as a global benchmark, a signal that you're ready for real leadership roles in security.
Totally. So our mission here, digging into the material you shared with us, is basically to give you a clear, practical guide. We want to unpack the insights from these sources and lay out what they suggest are like 5 smart steps for getting ready, studying effectively, and hopefully passing that CPP exam.
Think of it as us trying to map out the path based on this material,
Yeah.
helping you understand how to tackle this pretty significant professional goal.
Okay, so let's get into it. The sources really start with a fundamental question, don't they? Which is, why even bother with the CPP? What's the point?
And that's so important because knowing your why is what keeps you going. The sources frame the CPP, especially for mid-level pros, as more than just another cert.
Okay.
It's positioned as this clear signal to everyone, employers, peers, that you're prepped for leadership, that you get the bigger picture strategically.
And the sources get specific about what that strategic understanding actually covers.
Right.
It's not just knowing stuff. It's
Right. It's about understanding core business principles, first off, and then knowing how to think through complex things like investigations, different kinds of threats, managing crises.
strategically.
Yes, strategically, and applying that same strategic thinking to the big areas: physical security, personnel security, and information security, too.
So it's about seeing how they all connect, how they support the business, not just operating in silos.
Precisely. Connecting the dots is a good way to put it, seeing the integrated security function.
The sources even use this phrase, professional passport. I thought that was interesting. What do they mean by that?
Yeah, that passport idea really highlights its value. It suggests the CPP is recognized and respected. Whether you're looking at corporate security jobs, going into consulting, or even pursuing roles internationally, it travels well, so to speak.
That makes sense.
And just circling back to that why for a second, the sources really hammer this home. You need a strong personal reason for doing this. That's your fuel, especially when the studying gets, tough.
Okay, got it. Nail down the why first. So once you're motivated, the sources say the very next practical step is figuring out if you're even eligible and doing that early.
Absolutely critical. Don't waste time studying if you don't meet the criteria yet. Eligibility really boils down to your security experience and your education.
Right.
So the sources lay it out. If you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you need 5 years total security experience. But, and this is key, 3 of those 5 years have to be in what ASIS calls a responsible charge role, a leadership role.
Okay, 5 years total, 3 in responsible charge with a degree. What if you don't have a bachelor's?
Then the bar shifts slightly. The sources state you need 7 years of total security experience.
Okay.
But you still need those 3 years in that responsible charge capacity. That leadership component is constant.
Let's dig into that responsible charge term a bit more. The sources define that, right? Because it sounds like it's more than just having managed people for 3 years.
It definitely is. It's a crucial distinction. The source material describes responsible charge as being in a position where you had real authority, making security decisions that actually impacted operations.
Okay.
Maybe you managed multiple sites, or you were responsible for security budgets, or you played a significant part in developing security strategy or policy. It's less about the title on your business card.
And more about the weight of your responsibilities and your decision-making power.
Exactly. Your strategic influence, like managing the security budget for a whole region, probably counts. Just managing the guard roster for one building. Unless that involved significant independent decision-making on procedures, maybe not. You see the difference?
Yeah, I do. It's about that strategic contribution.
Okay. And the sources also mention needing references.
That's right. 3 professional references are part of the application. So you need to think ahead about who can really speak to your experience and, importantly, that leadership or responsible charge aspect.
Good tip. Choose them wisely and give them plenty of notice. Okay, so why is locked in? Eligibility is confirmed. Now we hit the part that probably looms largest for people. the actual studying. How do you tackle all that material?
Yeah, this is where the study smart, not just hard advice on sources comes in. It can feel like a mountain of information.
Because the exam covers a lot of ground. The sources list, what, 7 main areas? That's right, 7 key domains. Let me see if I can list them off. Security principles and practices, that's foundational. Then business principles and practices tying security to the business.
Okay.
Investigations, personnel security, physical security, information security, and finally, crisis management.
Wow, okay. That's broad.
Yeah. So, faced with all that, what's the smart approach according to the sources? Where do you even start?
The key insight is, don't just start reading page 1 and plow through. First, figure out where you're weakest.
Makes sense.
You probably know some areas well from your job, right? But the CPP requires that breadth. So the advice is to focus your initial study efforts on the domains where you have less hands-on experience or maybe, less formal knowledge.
Target your weak spots first. And what about study materials? What do the sources recommend?
Well, the absolute core resources mentioned are the official ones from ACES, that's the CPP study guide, and crucially, the protection of assets volumes, the POA.
Right. The POA set, those are pretty comprehensive. They are. They form the foundation. But the sources also suggest looking beyond just the books.
Like what? Online stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Things like relevant LinkedIn groups where people discuss CPP topics, maybe dedicated Discord study groups. Those can be great for asking questions and getting different perspectives. Even some YouTube playlists focused on CPP domains.
Okay, so supplement the core texts. But there was one study strategy the sources really emphasized, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. Practice tests. Lots and lots of practice tests.
Why are they so important?
2 main reasons, according to the sources. First, obviously, to test your knowledge recall. But maybe even more importantly, to get comfortable with the multiple choice format and, crucially, managing your time. You only have so long for a lot of questions.
Right, practicing under pressure.
Exactly. And there's a sort of pro tip in the material, too. Treat studying like training for a marathon, not cramming for a final exam. Meaning consistent, regular effort is better than occasional huge study sessions. Like aim for maybe 30 to 60 minutes every day, or most days. Build that knowledge steadily over time. Consistency beats cramming.
Good advice. Okay, step 4 is where things get maybe a bit less concrete, but potentially even more important. The sources talk about shifting to a leadership mindset. What's that about?
This is absolutely vital, and it really separates the CPP from just, say, a technical certification. It's not just about knowing facts and figures.
Okay.
The exam is deliberately designed to test how you think strategically, your decision-making process from a leadership perspective.
So we're talking scenario questions, like here's a situation, what's the best thing to do?
Exactly that. You'll get complex scenarios and have to choose the most appropriate, most strategic course of action from the options given. It's about applying knowledge to messy, real-world type problems and thinking about risk, priorities, impact.
Yeah, the examples given were pretty illustrative. Like a crisis hits, do you prioritize protecting assets, ensuring staff safety, or maybe getting word to stakeholders first? The best answer isn't always obvious, right? It depends.
It absolutely depends on the context and the strategic priorities in that specific scenario.
Right.
Or another example, a big data breach happens. Does the leader immediately call legal, start patching systems? Or maybe step back for a second and do a quick risk and impact assessment first.
Right. It forces you to think like someone responsible for the bigger picture.
Precisely. Holistic thinking, considering second and third order effects.
So how do you actually prepare for that kind of thinking, especially if maybe your current role isn't quite at that strategic level yet?
Right.
What do the sources suggest?
Good question. The sources recommend a couple of things. One is to really reflect on your own experiences. Think back on security incidents or decisions you were part of. What did you do? What were the outcomes? What might a strategic leader have done differently?
Okay, self-reflection.
Yeah. And also, study real-world case studies. Look at how experienced security leaders analyze problems, weigh options, and make those tough calls. And maybe the most important habit to build as you study and do practice questions is to constantly ask yourself, okay, what would a strategic security leader do here? Filter the options through that lens.
Think like a leader. Got it. Okay, so after all that prep, the studying, the mindset shift, we get to step 5, actually taking the exam like a pro. Game day.
Right. You've put in the work, now it's about execution. The sources lay out the basics. It's 225 multiple choice questions.
Okay.
And you get 3 hours to do them.
And you can take it either online with remote proctoring Or you can go to a physical Pearson VUE testing center.
Correct. You generally have those choices.
Yeah, and the results. Do you have to wait weeks?
Thankfully, no. The sources say you get your result immediately after you finish the exam. Pass or fail, you know right then.
Oh, wow. Okay, immediate feedback. That probably helps with the anxiety, yeah.
Definitely takes some of the waiting agony away.
Are there any specific test-taking strategies the sources mention for the day itself?
Yes, some practical tips. They suggest doing a first quick pass through all the questions, answer the ones you know right off the bat.
Get the easy points first.
Exactly. And flag the questions that seem tougher or that you need more time to think about. Then you circle back to the flagged ones. It helps manage that clock. Don't get bogged down too long on any single question early on.
Smart time management. And the sources also make a point that you don't need a perfect score, right? Just a passing score.
That's a really important piece of perspective. You just need to meet the standard, not ace every single question. Takes a bit of the pressure off.
For sure.
And importantly, the sources are realistic. They acknowledge that, look, not everyone passes on the first try. It happens.
Yeah.
And they frame it not as failure, but as useful data. If you don't pass, the score report actually shows you which domains you were weaker in. So it gives you a very clear roadmap for what to focus on for your next attempt. It's diagnostic.
That's actually a really helpful way to look at it. Okay, so let's try and wrap up the core advice from the sources. These 5 smart steps for the CPP journey are basically...
Okay, first, really nail down your personal why. That motivation is key.
Got it. Why am I doing this? Second,
Confirm you're eligible and do it early. Pay attention to that responsible charge piece.
right, check the requirements. Third step,
Study smart. Focus on weaker areas. Use the main resources like POA and do loads of practice tests. Consistent effort.
study smart, practice tests. Fourth,
Cultivate that strategic leadership mindset. It's not just about facts. It's about how you think.
think like a leader.
And fifth, show up on exam day ready to execute. Manage your time. Use those test-taking strategies. Be professional about taking the test itself.
It really feels like the CPP, based on this material, is about taking all that valuable experience you listeners already have, the years on the job, the challenges you've handled, and getting that formal recognized stamp, that stamp of leadership readiness.
That's a great way to put it. It formalizes and validates that strategic capability that you've likely already been developing.
So final thought then.
Yeah.
What should you, listening right now, take away from all this?
Well, here's something to maybe chew on. That strategic leader's mindset, the CPP tests. It's not just for exam day.
Okay.
How could you start consciously applying that kind of thinking, risk-based, strategic, looking at the bigger picture to the challenges and decisions you face in your current job, starting like tomorrow? That shift in perspective itself can bring benefits long before you even sit the exam.
That's powerful. Start thinking like a CPP now. Excellent point. Okay, that's our deep dive for today. Stay sharp, everyone.